with the Jesus Revolution movie coming out and sweeping the nation, with the Asbury revival, with revivals breaking out on all of these campuses, with God moving, how is this book critical to this timing of this season of revival?
Well, if you look at any move of God, one of three things, we can be in one of three places. We can be on the outside looking in, or we can be resisting it, or we can be on the crest of the wave. And it's funny, the Irwin brothers, Andy is a good friend of ours, and we previewed the movie last September. I already knew the book was coming out in February. And to be honest with you, the publisher, when they said the book was coming out in February, I said, that's too soon. I said, you need a year, because we met in July. And they said, no, we feel like it's supposed to come out in February. Well, after praying about it, I felt good too. Well, then Andy, the Irwin brothers told me, okay, our movie's coming out in February. I'm like, that's interesting. Well, then the Asbury revival breaks out. And I'm realizing that God is wanting to position us to receive the outpouring of his Spirit, to enter into his glorious presence. So the movie shows that here's a pastor faced with a crisis. Am I going to continue to do things the way I've been doing it, with no presence of God and no revival in my church? Or am I going to take the risk, and am I going to start welcoming these people in that have bare feet, that haven't taken a bath, as he says in the movie? And what happens? He ends up, Chuck Smith, being a leader of an entire movement. And I told our team, I said, guys, we kind of learned how to pivot in COVID. We back in 2020, I said, we better be ready to pivot this year. I said, because we are about to see an outpouring of God's Spirit that I have been waiting for 40 years. I came in to know Jesus at the very end of the Jesus Revolution back in 1979. And God told me back in those days, I'm going to bring my church into a wilderness, and I'm going to refine her character so that she can handle the full measure of my power. And then in the early 1990s, God spoke to me and he said, the outpouring of my Spirit that is coming will emphasize the holy awe of God. And he said, that is what's going to prepare my church for my son's return, because the only description, Amy, of the church that Jesus is coming back for, it's not a leadership-driven church. I believe in leadership. It's not a relevant church. I believe in relevance. It's not a community church. I believe it's not good that man's alone. It is a holy church without spot or wrinkle. But think of it, the enemy so perverted holiness that people fear that word. Holiness has nothing to do with legalistic rules and regulations. It's all about being completely and totally his. And so the awe of God is what opens up an intimate relationship with him. It is the beginning of knowing God intimately, which brings us into his presence, which sets us apart and makes us holy.